What's up, Falcons Nation? It's your boy Jew coming at you with another Atlanta Falcons video. As always, Falcons Nation, rise up. In today's video, I would like to talk about wide receiver Frank Darby. But if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. Hit that notification bell so you'll know when I've done Atlanta Falcons content. Hit that like button for your boy. I do appreciate each and every one of you guys. If you'd like to follow your boy on Twitter and Instagram, you can follow me at Jew Talk Sports. If you'd like to donate to my channel, you can donate to my Cash App, which is the $ Jew Talk Sports. And if you'd like to be a part of my Jew Talk Sports membership, you can hit that join tab here on the channel as well. But with that being said, let's jump right into the video. So as I mentioned in today's video, I do want to talk about wide receiver Frank Darby. Frank Darby is entering his third season with our Atlanta Falcons, and I'm pleasantly surprised of how he's performed so far at training camp. As you guys know, heading into training camp, I did think that Frank Darby would be one of those players that would be on the chopping block, possibly to be cut because we added so many wide receivers during the off season. But Frank Darby has really surprised me in this training camp. He's been balling out at training camp, and I've been very impressed with the way that he's performed at training camp. And I really think that he has a chance to make this 53-man roster. Of course, it's going to come down to the preseason games and the remainder of the training camps. We have some joint practices that's going to take place against the Miami Dolphins. And we have, of course, the 3 preseason games before we make the final cuts to this 53-man roster. But I am very pleased so far what I've seen out of Frank Darby. He's been making plays at training camp. Today he had a really nice catch in the one-on-one drills, but he's been doing a great job at training camp. They talked to him after training camp, I believe it was yesterday, and he talked about Arthur Smith talking to him and basically stating that he wanted him to take that next step this season because he's entering his third season under this offensive scheme with Arthur Smith. Frank Darby talked about him being able to just go out there and put it all out there on the field and go out there and play because he knows the scheme, he knows the plays. And at this point, to me, it seems like he's done a great job of developing and continuing to work on his craft and his game. Over the last 2 seasons, Frank Darby has been a guy mainly on special teams. He's been one of those glue guys for this Atlanta Falcons roster, but he hasn't really seen the field as far as being a receiver on offense. But from what I've seen so far out of him during training camp, and from what I'm hearing coming out of training camp, he's made a couple splash plays, and he's been one of those guys that's really been stepping up and turning heads there at training camp. And I really think that Frank Darby is a man on a mission. And I really think that he has a really, really good shot of making this team. Even though we're deep at that wide receiver position, to me, my biggest question mark for Frank Darby was not his skill set as far as being a special teams player. It was mainly if he could actually play the wide receiver position at a high level. And so far in training camp, he's been going up against our top corners, guys like Jeff Okudah, and I've seen him get a step on these guys. Sometimes the passes weren't the best when he's gotten a step, but he's been making plays when the ball has been in his vicinity where he can make a big play or make a catch. He's been doing a really, really good job at training camp of making catches and things of that nature, contested catches. He's running really, really good routes, and he seems like he's on the same page with Desmond Ridder. He did talk about in his press conference yesterday after practice that him and Desmond Ridder was kind of like on the scout team together. Both of those guys, because they were like second and third stringers where they weren't playing on Sundays. They were guys when we had Marcus Mariota here last year as the starter. Him and Desmond Ridder were able to get on the same page because they were basically helping with the scout team and helping with the second team. And that's when him and Desmond Ridder kind of developed some chemistry. And it's definitely showing out there in training camp that him and Desmond Ridder do have a connection. And I really think that Frank Darby could be one of those guys heading into year 3 that has kind of developed. And I'm really happy to see that he's taking it seriously. We all know that Frank Darby, likes to have a good time. He's one of those guys that's a happy-go-lucky type guy. But I really have been impressed from what I've seen, the clips that I've seen of him at training camp, and just the way that he spoke yesterday at his press conference. I'm definitely rooting for him to make this 53-man roster, and I definitely think that he has a serious chance of making that next step and could be like the fourth or fifth string wide receiver on this team. You guys know that we do play positionless football here in Atlanta, but with him playing the way that he's played so far during training camp and doing the things that he's done so far at training camp, I could definitely see him making this roster. As you know, he was drafted in that first draft class with Arthur Smith and Terry Fontenot. And because he's been in that development over the last 2 years, I really think that he's a player that I'll be watching really closely during these preseason games. I really think that that's what it's going to come down to, as him balling out during those preseason games. But I really think he has a chance of making this 53-man roster just based on, what has transpired so far at training camp. But with that being said, you guys give me your thoughts on Frank Darby. Do you think he has a chance of making this 53-man roster? Have you been impressed with him so far at training camp? Personally, I've been very impressed, and he's been the biggest surprise to me at training camp so far, is the way that he's balled out at training camp and the way that he's competing out there. But with that being said, this being your boy Jew, I have a lot more content coming for you guys. As always, Falcons Nation, rise up, be blessed. Peace.